right, the 2024 NFL Draft is in the books, and it's time for my annual draft review. We're going to break down how this first round went. I've tried to do these lots of different ways where I've said, hey, I'm not going to talk every pick. I think people want to hear how my thoughts or general conversation on their favorite team's picks. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do here. I'm going to try and get through each one of these picks, just kind of give you my thoughts. I want to try to avoid the whole I picked this guy in my mock because no one cares. No one cares what I did in my mock draft. They just kind of you come here for the analysis. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. So. The story of this first round, I think had to be quarterbacks. We had 1, 2, 3. We had 6 quarterbacks going in the first 12 picks. The first 3 picks are the quarterbacks that we thought were going to happen. We knew that Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jayden Daniels were going to be the 3 picks. And so that was no surprise. I mean, everyone kind of knew. I know some people liked Jayden Daniels better than Caleb Williams, but we knew that the Bears, we knew that they're going to take Caleb Williams. They're going to get their franchise quarterback. I like the pick. He's my number 1 rated player in this class. Chicago needs a quarterback like him. You can't pass him up. They traded Justin Fields, no brainer. Same thing with Commanders. It seemed like Jayden Daniels was the second best quarterback. I know there was some J.J. McCarthy conversations, but it looked more and more like Jayden Daniels was going to be that guy. So once again, not that surprised. Drake May was kind of where we thought maybe things would kind of go a little crazy. Would the New York Giants be able to trade up? Would Minnesota trade up to that 3rd pick, or would New England sit tight and actually pick the quarterback that they really wanted to kind of build their franchise around, something they haven't really done in the past? And they did that. They went ahead and took Drake May, a guy that's got a lot of talent, maybe needs some development work. I think they all need some development work, but New England, for the first time in a while, they have a quarterback of the future. I know they took Mac Jones not too long ago, but they have a true potential franchise quarterback in Drake May. So as it continue to go on, like I said, I'm going to go pick by pick. I'm not going to try and make this a 2-hour show. If you got questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'll try to answer them as we go through. But this draft continued to be kind of chalk. Marvin Harrison Jr. going to the Arizona Cardinals with that 4th pick. There was the conversation, would they drop down and try and trade back up to get him? I just think that maybe they didn't get the picks that they wanted, or the trade that they wanted. And I think they just really wanted Marvin Harrison Jr. So they just went ahead and made that trade or made that pick and got him. There's a lot of comparisons to Larry Fitzgerald, so it's kind of a no-brainer to me. Now, pick 5 is where I was a little surprised. A lot of people mocked Joe Alt to the Chargers, and I like Joe Alt. He was one of my top 5 players in this class, one of the best offensive linemen that I've graded recently. I just didn't think he was going to be their pick. I just didn't think he fit really well with what they want to do. It's not a knock on Joe Alt. It's just he didn't seem like that road grading, run first mentality that we think the Chargers under Jim Harbaugh are going to have. And so I thought they'd try to trade out. Heck, even when they didn't trade out, I still thought J.C. Latham was going to be that pick. He just seemed like the fit for the Chargers. And they ended up taking Alt, and I was wrong. I've been pretty adamant that I didn't think it was going to be him, and I was wrong, and that's fine. I think Alt's a stud, and I think now you've got Rashawn Slater on one side, Joe Alt on the other side. You got 2 bookend tackles. I think Alt can have success with the Chargers. So, I think it's a good pick. Kind of moving on, Malik Neighbors to the Giants, another kind of commonly mocked pick. I thought maybe J.J. McCarthy's available. Maybe they would go and decide to pick him. But they must not like him that much. They must feel pretty confident with Daniel Jones, and they need weapons. The Giants need weapons bad, and they got one of the better receivers in this class, one of the best receivers to come out in the last couple of years. You know, if you think about it, he's one of those elite receivers, gives them some juice, gives them some down the field ability. I've talked about why I thought they'd take Malik Neighbors was because I thought that he reminded Daboll of Stephon Diggs and the success that Stephon Diggs had in Buffalo with Brian Daboll. So no surprise there. Pick 7 was the Tennessee Titans. I long thought this was the Joe Alt pick, that they would go out and get Joe Alt, and because he had fallen to them. Even if they didn't get Alt, I knew they were going to take tackle. I thought maybe Fashanu would be the guy that they'd take from Penn State. Instead, they took J.C. Latham, and that was a pick on a player that was kind of starting to link. We had heard J.C. Latham be the talk was he'd be the second-rated tackle, that he would, and he had some ties to the Titans. And I just, once again, thought maybe they'd want more of that left tackle. And the thing about Latham is they might see him as that left tackle. You know, maybe they see, maybe they see that he could move over there. They got Bill Callahan, an excellent offensive line coach. Maybe they think they could move him, or maybe they said, hey, he's clearly the next best tackle. We don't care if he's a left tackle or right tackle. We need help at tackle. And so they take him. All right, let's get into 8. The Atlanta Falcons. I mean, for the most part, people thought this was going to be the first defensive player. You know, forever it was Dallas Turner. Lately, it's been Byron Murphy. But a few weeks ago, it was reported that the Falcons sent a huge contingent out to Michael Penix's pro day. And then even within the last couple of days, there was some murmurs and some chatter out there about Michael Penix to the Falcons. And I'm just like, well, maybe like in the second round, if he falls. I don't get this pick at all. As Bears Junkie in the comment section put it, I don't know if I could post that up there. I'm new to this. I haven't done the live views very often. I don't get this pick. I don't get Michael Penix to the foul. I mean, what is the purpose of this pick? I mean, even when the draft was going off, like the people were, the people on the set, I watched ESPN's coverage, and they all seemed surprised. They all seemed like, oh, I didn't see this, it was rumored, but no one said why. Like, what is the purpose? You signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal, $180 million, whatever it is. He's going to be your quarterback at least the next 2 years. And maybe you like Penix and you like him and you say, hey, he's our future. But he's also 24 years old, and I'm not a big age guy with draft picks. I know other people are, and maybe I should be. But I'm not a big age guy. But still, I mean, that's the thing about rookie quarterbacks is you want them on that rookie contract as long as possible so you can spend that money elsewhere. Now your time, it just makes I'm flabbergasted. It just doesn't make much sense to me because why? Why would you do this? You just signed your quarterback to go all in. The division's wide open. Tampa Bay played well last year, but they're not a team that you don't think you get past. Why not take a pass rusher? You need pass rushers. Why not take a defensive tackle, a cornerback? You're sitting at pick 8, and there's a lot of elite players there. And you take Penix, and I get they liked him. I just don't get it. I can't wait for more information to come out. I can't wait for Atlanta to have their press conference to talk about it because it doesn't make a lot of sense. All right, moving on to pick 9. I was all but certain that the Bears were going to trade out. I was all but certain the Bears were going to trade down, have a team move up to kind of get a tackle. That's what Poles has shown he's been willing to do. But instead, they stay put and they take Rome Odunze at pick 9. I absolutely love this pick. I think the Bears have learned their lesson from how they handled the Justin Fields situation. And I know Poles came into the situation. It's not like he drafted Justin Fields. But they know that that have success, you got to surround Caleb Williams with talent. And they went out and traded for Keenan Allen. They've got DJ Moore, who they traded for. You got Cole Kmet. You got the tackle, Darnell Wright last year. Now they go out and get that boundary X. And Odunze was a guy that I thought would have been a perfect fit for the Bears because he's that boundary X. You've got Keenan Allen on the slot. You got DJ Moore that can kind of be moved around. And now you got this passing attack. Caleb Williams has a solid offensive line. He's got weapons. Things are set up for him to have success. And so, yes, I would have loved for them to trade back, maybe get a defensive end. But this offense is going to be one of the best, potentially best offensive the Bears have had in I don't know how long. Pick 10, this is where J.J. McCarthy went. We thought J.J. McCarthy would be the pick for the Vikings, especially since we didn't, the talk of maybe Drake May not being going past New England. So when was Minnesota going to trade up? Maybe it was 4, maybe it was 5. Instead, they didn't have to move up. They moved up one spot to get him. And they were able to move up and get him with one pick and move up with one pick, get their quarterback, not have to, there was talk coming out that they would, they wanted to keep that 23rd pick. They didn't trade in just to trade that pick. So they were able to do that. They didn't have to move up, mortgage all these picks in the future to get their quarterback, and they played it right. And I think McCarthy's got a lot of potential. He's going into a really good situation. So it'll be kind of curious to see how that plays out. Kind of going, I don't do a lot of these live videos. So if you hear me kind of pause, it's because I'm seeing the comments come up, and the comments are kind of coming up, and Bears Junkie 23 8 Hall of Fame. You got a lot of comments in there, and they seem to be coming late, but talking about the Bears pick, the stadium. I love that stadium. Yeah, they're gonna have to pay a lot of it. Hopefully they do well, make a lot of money. They're gonna get a loan from the team. I wonder if I could find a way to post this. I don't know. This is all new to me. So, but I'd love to post it on the screen, but I don't. But let's keep it moving. Thanks again for the comments. So we have pick 12. This was the pick 12 was Denver. Denver took the quarterback, 6th quarterback. I mean, when's the last time we had 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round? I don't know. I can't think of it. I didn't think Nix would go in the first round. Heck, I wasn't for sure Penix would go in the first round. But they ended up, Broncos made their pick. And it makes a lot of sense. That was the quarterback to me that fit what Sean Payton wanted to do the best. I talked myself out of it, thinking he doesn't have a lot of experience with rookie quarterbacks. He is 12 too rich for Bo Nix? And so I talked myself out of it, thought maybe they'd try to get him some other way. Instead, they just said, hey, this is the guy we want. We don't want to waste any more time. Let's just go get him. Don't love the pick, but once again, I get the fit. The fit's there. And he doesn't have to come in right away. They got Jared Stidham there, who Sean Payton's talked all about. Get Nix a little used to it, but like I said, he's not going to be Drew Brees. But he plays a similar game, a similar style. He's best on that quick timing stuff, and that's what Sean Payton really wants to do. All right, pick 13, Brock Bowers going to the Raiders. This doesn't surprise me. Now that the pick's been made, it didn't surprise me, but you didn't hear a lot of that chatter about him going to them as an option. I wonder if they were kind of maybe looking at Penix, maybe looking at Nix, and they thought, oh, hey, we can get Penix at 13. I'm a little surprised they didn't go tackle. Talise Fuaga's still available there. And but they were able to. I feel like I missed a pick. I did. Um, so maybe they thought Talise Fuaga. Maybe they thought they could get a tackle. Maybe they didn't think it was that big of a need, but they went with Bowers. They got a weapon, and you think about it. They got Devontae Adams. They used to have Darren Waller, but they traded him away. Michael Myers there from last year, but now you've got Bowers, that movable chess piece. So it should be interesting to see how Luke Getsy uses him. Can they get the most out of him? Sometimes you get a team and they get a weapon and they don't know what to do with him. They're like, hey, this guy's really sweet. We're going to take him. But then they don't know how to use him, and then they get squandered. So hopefully Bowers is a stud. I'm really hoping that the Raiders know how to use him and can move him around and kind of put him in their best spot. Now, I just realized I did miss a pick. I missed the 11th pick of Ola Fashanu to the Jets. That was pick 11. That was a Bowers landing spot for a lot of people. To me, I thought they were going to go all in, so Bowers would have made a lot of sense. But I know Joe Douglas loves his offensive tackles. And they got Tyron Smith, they got Morgan Moses, but they're older, injury prone. They needed to add somebody else. And I thought Talise Fuaga would have been the pick, but they go with Fashanu, and it's no surprise. I mean, here was a guy that last year at this time, if he would have been in the draft, people were like, he would have been the first tackle taken ahead of Paris Johnson Jr. And he goes back, maybe doesn't have quite the year that he did the year before or people expected. And there's a lot of projections in that he was going later. Even saw some in the 20s. And so I think the NFL told us, like, hey, this guy's pretty good. Yes, he still has some work to do, which all these prospects do. But he's a guy that could come in. What if Tyron Smith does get hurt? Fashanu could fly right into that left tackle spot. That's his natural position. They need to protect Aaron Rodgers, and I think this accomplishes that. All right, getting back on track now. Pick 14, New Orleans Saints. They had to take a tackle. Trevor Penning at left tackle hasn't worked out. Ryan Ramczyk's been good, but kind of having some injury issues. How much longer can he keep going? They had to take that tackle, and Talise Fuaga is there. Now, Talise Fuaga is a right tackle. That's what he played at Oregon State. He's a good athlete. He's explosive. Can he make that transition over to left? The days of like, hey, we want our athletic left tackle and a power mauler at right tackle, those days are gone. You need good tackles on both sides. A lot of teams are going to put their best pass rushers sometimes on that right side. So it'll be curious to see what they do with Fuaga. Some guys can make that transition from left to right. Some can't because it's just how they do their drops, how their footwork is. So it'll be kind of curious. You would assume he would be able to make that transition over to left tackle, but we'll see. Worst case scenario, maybe they plug him in at guard. That's not really much of a need. Ramczyk was a left tackle at Wisconsin, so I have a feeling that Fuaga is going to get that shot at left tackle, but it'll be kind of curious to see how the season goes. All right, pick 15, New Orleans. Pick 15, Indianapolis Colts. Laiatu Latu. I don't know. I didn't really see defensive end, pass rusher getting projected much to them. It seemed like it was more the offensive side or cornerback, Brock Bowers. Maybe they went receiver. Xavier Worthy was a hot name late. Brian Thomas Jr. was another guy. Quinion Mitchell, Terrion Arnold were possibilities as well. And so it was a little bit of a surprise, but it makes a lot of sense. They continue to need pass rushers. They've got talented guys. They've drafted guys in the past, but I don't think they've really hit on and have that true elite edge rusher. And I think Laiatu Latu could definitely give that. I hope he stays healthy. He's like my 6th-rated prospect. Love him as a pass rusher, but he's got the neck issue. And I really hope that he's able to stay healthy and he's able to have a productive NFL career. All right, halfway mark, 16. Seattle Seahawks. I mean, we haven't had hardly. I mean, there was a few trades, with the Jets and the Vikings moving, but other than that, there hasn't been at this point no trades. And so Seattle was a team that you always think is going to move down, and they didn't, and they stayed put, and they got Byron Murphy, and Byron Murphy had a lot of buzz, in the last couple days, week about, hey, he could be that top 10 pick. The Atlanta Falcons are a possibility. He could be the first defensive player taken. Maybe the Bears at pick 9 could really use that penetrating defensive end and a defensive tackle. But instead, he falls, and I think he goes to a perfect situation. Seattle, with Mike Macdonald as their defensive head coach and defensive coordinator, they're going to prioritize that defensive line. They want athletic guys, versatile guys. And Byron Murphy plays a lot like Justin Madubuike, who Macdonald had all that success this past year with in Baltimore. And Murphy's ability to penetrate, he could do a lot of things. And it just really, I thought this was one of the picks that I'm like, that's a guy that's going to go there. I don't know if they're going to trade up to get Byron Murphy or they're going to let him fall to him. But he was, to me, it was like a perfect fit for what Seattle wants to do with Macdonald as their head coach. And he fell right into their lap. All right, pick 17. This is where we kind of see our first big trade. And it involves the Minnesota Vikings, a team that a lot of people thought would move up to get the quarterback. And here they move from 23 to 17 with the Jacksonville Jaguars to get Dallas Turner. And a lot of people thought Dallas Turner was going to be the first defensive player taken, the first pass rusher taken. He seemed like the cleanest prospect, the most explosive. But he wasn't the first defensive prospect taken. And heck, he wasn't even the first pass rusher taken with Laiatu Latu going to the Colts. But the Vikings needed a pass rusher. They needed to replace Danielle Hunter, and they got a raw athletic guy, and we'll see in Todd Bowles' system if they can develop him into that pass rusher. Like I said, they need one, so we'll kind of see how he goes. Cincinnati went ahead and took offense tackle Amarius Mims. This was another pick that I like to have seen coming. They need a right tackle. They got Trent Brown. But lately we've seen the Bengals kind of draft for the future. They tend to draft not for this upcoming year, but the next year. And Mims is a talented, he's athletic, he's huge, he's long, like 86-inch wingspan. But he's got real limited experience. Only 8 starts, with Georgia. He goes to a good situation. They've got a good offensive line. He can play, he doesn't have to come in and be a starter right away. He can sit behind Trent Brown, learn from him. They have success with Orlando Brown being a massive guy on the left. Trent Brown's massive on the right. He can kind of learn from those guys and learn how to use his size to his advantage. Pick 19, the Los Angeles Rams. Here's a team that a lot of people rumored them to go up. I know that a lot of the talk right up before the draft is they were calling into the top 10 to try and trade up to target somebody, and obviously they stayed put. And so I'm curious of who they are going after. Were they going after, they took Jared Verse. Is that the guy that they were trying to target, and they realized no one up there is wanting him? Were they trying to get Latu? Were they trying to get Dallas Turner? And no one was talking, so they just stayed back. Maybe no one wanted to trade. I mean, there was no trades that early. So maybe teams just like, hey, we like where we're at. We don't want to move back. But I like this pick of Jared Verse. I think he really fits well within that team, a guy that can kind of move around. You're not going to slide him and reduce him all the way down. But the Rams need to replace Aaron Donald, and they're not going to do that with one person. They're got to do it with multiple people, and I think Verse is going to give him that edge. He's a power edge pass rusher. Going to move him around a little bit, but I think he's a great fit for them. All right, into the 20s. The Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line seemed to be the area that they're going to go in. Maybe it was Graham Barton. Maybe it was Jackson Powers Johnson. Instead, they went with Troy Fontenot from Washington. Really like this pick. It'll be curious because interior line is a need as well. But they also could use some tackle play. And Broderick Jones, their pick last year, came on and started at right tackle and played well. He can move back to his natural left tackle spot. Maybe Fontenot plays right tackle. Maybe they try Fontenot at left tackle. Maybe they try both of them and see which one's better. Fontenot has that versatility. Looks like he's a guy that can play guard. He had a lot of success at left tackle. He's long, despite only being 6'4". So I'm really curious to see, but maybe they said, hey, he's the best lineman here. I don't care, whether he plays right tackle, left tackle, guard, center. They're going to find a spot for him, and he's going to be a good player. All right, pick 21, Chop Robinson, the pass rusher from Penn State. One of my favorite players in this draft. Very explosive. Reminded me a lot of Will McDonald from last year, who went to the Jets at pick 15. But I think a better player. Explosive off the edge, very bendy. Maybe could be better against the run, but the Dolphins needed pass rushers. Jalen Phillips got hurt last year. They had a couple other guys get hurt. So they needed a pass rusher, and I think Chop Robinson was a guy that somebody was saying, hey, he could be the second or third guy there. Now, he ended up being the fourth because Latu already went, Verse has already got, Dallas Turner's gone. So he was the fourth guy. But I think he's a very talented guy, and being the 21st pick, I think is tremendous. Still very good value for him. All right, pick 22, the Eagles. Here's a team that I was convinced they're going to take a tackle or offensive lineman, because that's what Howie Roseman does, offensive or defensive lineman. And the Eagles haven't drafted a cornerback since 2001, but that had been kind of the rumors. And there was talk that they could move up. Well, they didn't have to really move up. I think they moved up maybe not. But they ended up sticking in the 20s, and they got arguably what most people consider the best cornerback in the draft in Quinion Mitchell, a guy who I think he's best suited to play in the press. He played a lot of off-man coverage at Toledo. I think you put him in the press, you let him play man, you use his speed, use his length, use his ball. He has tremendous ball skills. And the Eagles need a difference maker at cornerback. They got defensive linemen. They've got some talent on defense. They just need corners. And I think he gives them a high-end guy. We'll see if he develops. I hope he does. He looks like a fun player. Well, we'll see how he develops. All right, pick 23, the Jacksonville Jaguars trading back from 17 to 23. Another team that thought maybe was going to go cornerback. Terrion Arnold was available. They didn't go of him. They went after receiver, and they needed to replace Calvin Ridley. They needed that outside guy to be their guy. And I think this is a great pick for the Jaguars because, like I said, they needed that outside guy to replace Calvin Ridley. You've got some talent inside with Christian Kirk. I know they picked up Gabe Davis, but they need that number one guy. And Trevor Lawrence needs some help. And if we think back to Trevor Lawrence at Clemson, when he had his best success, he had big, fast corners on the outside. Justin Ross, before he got injured, T. Higgins. Those two guys, when those were starting with Trevor Lawrence, they were winning national championships. And I think Brian Thomas Jr. gives him one of those type of guys, gives him an elite downfield threat, a big threat, a guy that can go up and get the ball. And I love this pick for the Jaguars. 24, we have the Detroit Lions, the host of the draft. And they moved up. They moved up in the draft, and they got, I think, maybe the steal of the draft. Terrion Arnold was, I think, my fourth-rated player in this class. I was a huge Terrion Arnold fan. As soon as I put on the tape, I fell in love with him, and I think people got so hung up on that 40-yard dash time. They're like, oh, he's not that fast, and so that's why he's falling. But if you watch him play, Watch him play against LSU and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. You watch him play against SEC speed, and he doesn't look slow. I think he plays faster than, some guys run fast and they don't play fast. Some guys play fast and they don't time fast. Terry Arnold's a guy that, to me, I never once thought he was slow. Not once. And not that he, his 40 time was slow. It just wasn't as good as other corners. So corners seem to be a big issue for the Lions, and they got a steal, in my opinion, in Terry Arnold. All right, pick 25, the Packers. Brian Gutekunst finally took an offensive player in the first round. For years, it was always defensive players. Quay Walker, Eric Stokes, Rashawn Gary. I mean, they just continued to take defensive players, and I just figured that's what they'd do again, but instead they surprised us. And they took an offensive lineman in Jordan Morgan, a guy that I thought would be kind of somewhere in here. I thought maybe he'd go a little bit later. A guy that, you do have to wonder, is he a guard or is he a tackle? He played left tackle for Arizona. I think that's where he's going to give them, going to get his first look. We'll be kind of curious to see how he is, but they need that tackle with David Bakhtiari kind of being done. And so they went with Jordan Morgan. All right, pick 26, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Graham Barton, the left tackle out of Duke, who's going to transition to center. I really liked him as a tackle. I thought he played well. I thought, he kind of looked like a guard playing tackle, even though he handled himself very well. Guys that experience at center. From his freshman year at Duke, the Buccaneers need a center to replace Ryan Jensen, and I think they got the best center in the draft. And centers usually have a high hit rate in the first round. For the most part, for every Travis Frederick and Marquise Pouncey, there's a Garrett Bradbury. But the Buccaneers are a sneaky good team. I know they went to the playoffs. I know they won a playoff game, but they're a sneaky team. If Baker Mayfield continues to play well, here's another team that could make a back-to-back playoff run. All right, let's look to finish out this first round. Pick 27, the Arizona Cardinals taking Darius Robinson. I like this pick. In Jonathan Gannon's defense, he gives him some versatility. On the broadcast on ESPN, they talked about him going in at the 3 technique. I don't see that there. I know he's 284 pounds. To me, he's more of an edge guy. I look at some of the guys that Gannon had in Philadelphia, and I think he fits well with the edge with those guys. And that's where he had his most success when Missouri moved him out more towards the edge. I know he could play the 5 technique. He could play the 4-eye. But when he's on that edge going against those tackles, that's where he had his most success. And they're still going to move him down. He's going to reduce at times. But I think he gives Jonathan Gannon and that defense a versatile defensive lineman. All right, pick 28, we have the Chiefs moving up. And I thought ESPN did a great job of this. The Chiefs moved up with the Bills to get a receiver in Xavier Worthy. And you think of the Chiefs, receiver has been an issue for them. They've never truly replaced Tyreek Hill. Yes, they got Rashee Rice, who really kind of came on at the end of the season and is a very good player. But their offense has not been the same. You think of Tyreek Hill and his speed and the explosiveness that he gave them. And they tried it with Sky Moore. They tried it with Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And it just didn't work. And I think they're going back to the well to get a true speed receiver in Xavier Worthy, 4.21, what was his 40-yard dash time. But it's funny that the Bills, a team that is in the same division, that's competing with the Chiefs they got to try and they can't beat the Chiefs to get to that Super Bowl. And then you trade back with them and let them take a weapon. And I know the Bills have a lot of needs. They lost Stephon Diggs. They had to cut a bunch of veteran players. It just seems like a weird move to kind of give your rival, even though they're not in the same division, the ability to come up and get their guy, especially when you need a receiver too. All right, pick 29, the Dallas Cowboys, Tyler Guyton. Tyler Guyton was, to me, like a perfect fit for the Cowboys. That's who I thought they were going to go with. Tyler Guyton, to me, when I was thinking of the Cowboys and who they could take, they need to replace their left tackle in Tyron Smith. If you think back, Tyron Smith, when he came out of USC, he was a athletic right tackle who didn't play left tackle, and the Cowboys took him, moved him instantly to left tackle, and he's been a stud for him. Tyler Guyton's a guy that I really like. I have him pretty high in my tackle rankings. I have him as my, let's see right here. He's my 4th rated tackle in this class. I really like him. Tall, athletic, still a little bit raw. Reminds me a lot of Tyron Smith. And I just assumed Jerry Jones would be like, hey, he looks like Tyron Smith. He reminds me of him. Let's take him. They ended up trading back and getting him. Pick 30, Baltimore Ravens taking Nate Wiggins. Usually they have a guy that kind of falls into their lap. You think of like Kyle Hamilton's, those type of guy. I like Nate Wiggins, but he's not a guy that I'm like, oh, hey, look at the Ravens once again getting a steal. He's talented. He's extremely fast. I just always wanted more with him. But the Ravens, they needed a corner, and they got one of the best corners in the draft. All right, last couple picks. Pick 31 and 32 are both receivers. We had the 49ers pick 31 taking Ricky Pearsall from Florida, and we had the Panthers trading up one pick to get Xavier Legette. Once again, the Bills, who need a receiver, are dropping down and passing up on that. And so Pearsall Legette wasn't a surprise. That had been a name that had been tied to the Panthers. And they'd talked about going in the first round. So that wasn't a surprise. The Panthers are finally building around Bryce Young. They traded for Deontay Johnson from the Steelers. Now they get Xavier Legette. I like Legette, big, physical wide receiver. I think he complements Deontay Johnson well. I like that pick for the Panthers. The Pearsall one surprises me, and maybe I'm trying to read too much into this, but they've got Debo, you got Ayuk, you've got Juwan Jennings. I know you need receivers, but Pearsall, is this an indication that they're going to trade Ayuk? I don't know. Probably. Pearsall's a guy that I haven't watched a ton. I know I kind of, Daniel Jeremiah has been pumping the Ricky Pearsall, like, hey, he's a name that I'm hearing, and so that's a guy that I'm going to go ahead and watch some more tape on because I haven't watched a ton. But he kind of fits with that Shanahan, his versatility, his quickness, run after the catch. He fits a lot with what they want to do. But like I said, I think this is going to be a potential replacement for Brandon Ayuk. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it is. All right, so that's the first round. It was an interesting first round. There wasn't a lot of movement like I thought there was. There wasn't a ton of surprises. I mean, Pearsall was kind of a surprise, but it didn't shock me. The Penix move was the only move that was like, whoa, that actually happened. I still can't fathom. I still can't believe that the Falcons did that. But the rest of these picks, they all make sense. And I may not agree with them, and I may think some certain players went higher than they should, but that's why I'm sitting in my garage talking about this and not in an NFL draft war room. But like all these picks make sense. And so it wasn't a boring draft. I enjoyed it. I liked it like I always do. But it's not kind of what I expected. All right, real quick before we end this, I do want to kind of look ahead to the second round and kind of go through some of the players that I think are the best players available for day two. So if I look, these are strictly my rankings. So they are going to be a little jaded. I look at the guys that I have. Enos Rakeshaw is a guy that I'm a really big fan of, the cornerback from Missouri. Physical. He reminded me a lot of the cornerback from Illinois that went to Seattle. His name's escaping me from last year, but just a real physical, not huge corner, but he's going to hit you in the mouth. He's got good speed on tape. I know he didn't run a good 40 time. Keon Coleman's a guy that I'm I'm a fan of. I know he was another name that was talked about early in the set that could sneak his way in there. I think he's a receiver to kind of keep an eye on. A.D. Mitchell's still available. He's a guy that a lot of people thought would go in the first round. Cooper DeJean's another guy that a lot of people thought, would. Maybe they were worried about his injuries. Maybe they just, for whatever reason, didn't want to take him as a cornerback. Maybe a lot of teams view him as a safety, and we don't see the safety being highly prioritized. I think he's a guy that's going to be going pretty early in the second round. Jackson Powers Johnson, a center. I didn't think he'd go in the first round. He wasn't in my final mock. But a team looking for a center, especially one more of a physical power man blocking scheme type guy. Are we going to see the linebackers go? Edgerrin Cooper and Peyton Wilson are two athletic, fast linebackers. I think a team looking for someone like that could target one of those guys. Johnny Newton, Jazir Newton, Jerzon Newton, going by Johnny. He's another guy, the second best interior pass rusher. Little surprised he didn't go in the first round. So he's a guy to kind of keep an eye on. I really like Brandon Dorlus. I think he's probably going to be a late second, early third round pick, but I have him high. But those are kind of the guys. Ladd McConkey. I think a lot of people were probably surprised that Ricky Pearsall went ahead of Ladd McConkey because a lot of people were projecting Ladd McConkey to be a potential first round pick, and him and Pearsall are kind of a little bit of a similar skill set. So there's still a lot of talent available, especially at that receiver position, and Buffalo's going to have the first pick in the second round, so maybe they go A.D. Mitchell. I mean, if you think about it with Buffalo, if they would have taken A.D. Mitchell at their original pick 28, no one would have been surprised. No one would have been shocked. Heck, they could have traded up and taken A.D. Mitchell, and I don't think anyone would have batted an eye at it. And now they traded down twice, added more draft capital. Sure, you gave the Chiefs the receiver that they wanted, but you were able to drop back, add some draft capital, and they still could get A.D. Mitchell and be that deep threat down the field. So, interesting round one. Can't wait to see day two, the second and third round. I think there's a lot of good prospects out there. Thanks for watching. I had a few people coming in. I know some of you are going to watch this after the fact. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for those notifications. I got some draft videos up there of guys that were drafted today. I'll have some more, some for the guys that are going to go tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Make sure you follow me on social media at draft_Brian. Until next time.